first started this channel, I wanted to bring unique criticisms and explorations of media. I still want to do this, but it gets a bit redundant in my 10-minute videos when I spend the first half explaining basic definitions and concepts versus actually focusing on the communities and their roles in the media. So I'm starting a series called Feminist Crash Courses. This series will be pretty spaced out because it requires a lot of time and effort in terms of editing, but basically 4 weeks straight you'll get 1 video a day of me explaining basic feminist concepts so that when I talk about them in later videos actually related to TV, films, and media, you'll know what I'm talking about. Crash Course number 1, how to be an ally. So before we get into the subsections of feminism, let's talk about being an ally. An ally is a person supporting an oppressed community they don't belong to. For example, a straight person supporting the queer community. There are many other privileges that could give you the opportunity to be an ally to an underprivileged community. But first, let's talk about privilege and oppression. Privilege and oppression are buzzwords that turn a lot of people off from being allies. And while I really want to sit here and tell you to grow up and accept the fact that there are people who have it worse than you historically, politically, socially, and economically, I'll be nice for now. So privilege is when a certain group of people have advantages and, well, privileges that other groups of people don't. Privilege took time to obtain, so when people say phrases like white or straight privilege, they're not just inventing these terms. This privilege came from centuries of oppressing people via slavery, genocide, and refusal to grant political, social, and economic rights. And since this empire of privilege took centuries to build, we can't expect it to just disappear overnight. White women haven't even had the right to vote for a century. A wage gap still exists racially and in terms of gender. There are no female presidents and only one of color. So if we still see disparities politically and economically, can we really believe that there's no longer any prejudice socially? Okay, so you still want to be an ally. I've got some rules for you, buddy. 1. It isn't about your feelings. When people say this, they're not trying to invalidate anything you've ever felt as a person. But if you find yourself huffing and puffing in the corner over a white people joke, you need to take a break and gain some perspective. Okay, so jokes about race, gender, orientation, the disabled community, etc. have been used as tools to oppress these groups of people. And do you really think the first person to make a racist joke was a black abolitionist fighting for equality? Or do you think it's more likely that they were in fact racists who saw this as a way to target black people via humor and disconnect from them emotionally? As jokes, stereotypes, and microaggressions spread about oppressed groups of people, they become cultural norms. Even if you aren't an anthropology major, you probably know that, as I've said before, cultural norms are not easy to break. So when people joke about their oppressors, it's a way to bring light to the fact that yes, there still are people who have it better. When people joke about their oppressors, it's a way to release anger about the inequalities they still face. When people joke about their oppressors, it's a way for them to stir the pot and make us rethink our cultural norms. But when people joke about the oppressed, they're contributing the cultural norms that activists have spent years trying to dismantle. If you want to be a productive ally, give oppressed people their space and don't take their jokes to heart. Instead, actually focus your time calling out people who are making insensitive jokes about oppressed people. Number 2, sit down and listen. When I first became an ally to certain communities, I was probably way too eager to insert my own opinion, even if it wasn't necessarily offensive. There's a difference between support and trying to take control of a space that isn't yours. Even if you think you've read the book front to back on a certain issue, unless you're actually a member of that oppressed group, you probably don't have the full scope of the issue. For example, a straight person could gab to me for days about biphobia, but unless they're actually bi, they probably wouldn't understand the internalized guilt or the conflicts within the queer community. So if you really want to promote a topic to the best of your ability as an ally, you need to keep more of an open ear than an open mouth. If a blank person says something is blank phobic or blankist, it probably is. You are here to support. You're an additional shoulder for us to stand on and amplify our voices. You're not the person with the megaphone screaming about the injustices they've faced. Whether you're reading a book or reblogging a post or retweeting something, make sure the source is someone who is actually a victim of that issue versus just another ally. Lots of people are willing to give allies more space, but that's up to them. 3. Sorry is in fact not the hardest word to say. So let's say everything's going good on your personal conquest to be a great ally. Then, oh no, you slip up. You make a racist assumption. You accidentally misgender someone. You say a word you had no idea was offensive. First thing you need to do is truly understand why what you did was wrong. An empty apology is useless. Saving face is usually people's first instinct, but that's not really their priority right now. And let's be real, considering what kind of shitty people we put on a pedestal and forgive, your reputation is probably going to be fine. You hurt someone's feelings. You need to try to understand why and find some empathy. Once you educate yourself on why what you did was wrong, you need to apologize. Not, "I'm sorry, that's too brief." Not, "I'm sorry I offended you." When you say that, you're implying the blame is on the person whose feelings are hurt, not you, the person who said something problematic. You need to say, "I'm sorry," and then explicitly explain why what you said was offensive. Depending on the offense, you may need to relinquish your space as an ally for a while. Give people their time and space, and if they eventually invite you back, great, you'll have some new room to grow. If not, still keep politically aware and get involved in ways that aren't infringing. And after you apologize, try not to attract sympathy, even if it's unintentionally. If your friend tries to comfort you for offending them, tell them, no, that's not even relevant right now. They're the ones whose feelings are the top priority. They're the ones who you need to make sure are okay. Even if you're an ally, people still may be scared to call you out or correct you. It's important for them to feel like this is a space for criticism and growth, not that you're going to recoil and flare your temper if someone points out something you did wrong. And finally, number 4, people are angry. Get over it. Anger is often seen as an emotion of impulse and immaturity, when really, anger has been the fuel for numerous activist movements in history. If no one got angry about injustice, no one would have taken action. Now, anger is a strong emotion, and it can be draining emotionally and physically, but that's the angry person's prerogative, not yours. If someone is angry about something, that is truly a display of how deeply this issue is affecting them. So many people have been told they shouldn't be angry over issues and have had their voices silenced on those issues. People who are angry in activism are labeled with negative buzzwords such as violent or rioters. Since we live in a society that gives angry people a whole lot of shit, it's really brave of someone to openly express that anger. It's not something for us to judge or be condescending about. Anger is an emotional response to feeling threatened. If an activist is angry, they feel scared. Most likely they fear their livelihood is in danger. And sadly, in a world full of racism, homophobia, transphobia, and sexism, it probably is. Don't tell people an opinion is only valid or respected if expressed calmly. If someone does happen to express an opinion calmly, here's something to think about. Maybe they're expressing the opinion calmly because the issue doesn't really affect them. It's just a conversation topic to them versus something that impacts their life. Maybe they're expressing their opinion calmly because they're scared of how people would react if they were shown to be angry or perceived to be angry. People often compromise the roots of their emotions in order to receive support, and that's not their fault. People do not deserve to be forced to water down their emotions about injustice. Instead of focusing our scrutiny on angry people, why don't we turn that scrutiny around on the people they're angry at? You might just be surprised what you see. To end our crash course on being an ally, here's one final lesson. It's not your fault you were born into privilege. But it is wrong not to acknowledge that privilege, effectively undermining the cause of people who have been deprived of equality. What's also wrong is not utilizing that privilege to benefit those without it. As always, I'm the Filminist. If you have any comments, concerns, want to go to any of my links, check down below. And well, stay tuned for my next crash course tomorrow.